North Korea says it has carried out the third launch of a military spy satellite last night and claims it was a success. The South Korean government partially halted the InterKorean Military Agreement in response. In London, the South Korean first couple received a full royal treatment from the British monarch during their state visit. And President Yoon, addressing the British Parliament, called for greater cooperation with the UK for security and the economy. Israel and Hamas strike a deal to pause the fighting for 4 days. They have agreed to free 50 hostages held in Gaza in exchange for the release of a number of Palestinians held in Israel and let humanitarian aid enter the enclave. It's November 22nd, 2023. This is News Center.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. We begin with North Korea's latest spy satellite launch attempt. The regime launched a military reconnaissance satellite last night and claims that its third attempt was successful. But South Korea's military is yet to verify whether that's true or not. Our defense correspondent Choi Min-jung reports.
North Korea reportedly succeeded in putting what it calls a military reconnaissance satellite into orbit late Tuesday night. The regime's state-run Korean Central News Agency on Wednesday said that at 10:42 p.m. Tuesday, a reconnaissance satellite was launched from a launch site in Dongchangni on the west coast. The report said the carrier rocket flew normally and accurately to put the reconnaissance satellite Mallikyung-1 into orbit at 10:54 p.m., 705 seconds after launch. Pyongyang had failed with its two previous attempts, once in May and once again in August. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un was reportedly on site to observe the launch.
He warmly congratulated the executives, scientists, and engineers of the entire National Aerospace Development Administration and related organizations who most accurately and brilliantly implemented the decisions of the 8th Congress of the Workers' Party of Korea.
Tensions in the region are expected to rise as Pyongyang also vowed to launch more spy satellites in a short span of time.
Satellites play an important role for North Korea in a preemptive attack. They not only increase North Korea's nuclear capabilities, but also pose a significant threat beyond the Korean peninsula, including to the US.
Another expert says that even if the launch was successful, it's too early to tell whether the satellite will serve its purpose.
There's no concrete evidence that the Mallikyung-1호, the satellite launched this time, will have the capacity to provide reliable, high-quality resolution military photographs that can be actually used for military benefits.
Although the North was quick to confirm the success, South Korea says it will reach a conclusion after Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo work closely together to analyze the launch. The military also noted that the three countries had jointly detected and tracked Pyongyang's satellite by deploying Aegis destroyers near the planned flight path. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
In response, South Korea partly suspended the 2018 InterKorean Military Agreement. This afternoon, specifically, the no-fly zones that ban aerial reconnaissance over the military demarcation line. Our North Korean affairs correspondent Kim Jong-sil has more.
On Wednesday, the Ministry of National Defense announced that the military will resume reconnaissance and surveillance activities along the military demarcation line as of 3 p.m. This means the South Korean military can now fly aircraft over the MDL to detect and monitor signs of North Korean provocations as it did in the past. The announcement came after the government decided to partially suspend the 2018 InterKorean Military Agreement, also known as the September 19 Military Agreement, following Pyongyang's spy satellite launch on Tuesday night. Earlier in the day, South Korean President Yoon led an emergency National Security Council meeting online during his state visit to the UK. Article 1, Clause 3 of the agreement states the extent of no-fly zones above the military demarcation line for all aircraft types. It also bans aerial reconnaissance activities within 25 kilometers of the MDL. Deputy Minister for National Defense Policy Heo Tae-geun strongly condemned Pyongyang's late-night satellite launch.
North Korea has launched a military reconnaissance satellite in an attempt to enhance surveillance and reconnaissance capabilities against South Korea, especially when our military has limited access to keep an eye on the North provocations due to the designation of the no-fly zones.
Senior officials of relevant ministries said the suspension will remain in effect until, quote, mutual trust is restored between the South and North. This is the first time that South Korea has officially declared the suspension of an InterKorean agreement. According to the Ministry of Unification on Wednesday, a total of 258 agreements have been made and documented between the two Koreas since 1971. Yonhap News Agency reported that North Korea has unilaterally declared a termination or annulment of such agreements more than 6 times. Kim Jung-sil, Arirang News.
The United States strongly condemned Pyongyang's latest satellite launch, saying it's a violation of multiple UN Security Council resolutions. A similar message was sent from Japan, too. Chung Eun-ju with the details.
North Korea's latest spy satellite launch has invited strong condemnation from the United States and its partners because the UN bans North Korea from conducting satellite launches, calling them covers for tests of missile technology. The UN Secretary General condemned the latest launch and reiterated a call for the North to return to its path of denuclearization. U.S. National Security Council spokesperson called the launch a brazen violation of multiple UN Security Council resolutions. A U.S. State Department spokesperson said the launch employed ballistic missile technology, which UN resolutions ban North Korea from using. In brief remarks to reporters upon arriving at the Prime Minister's office on Tuesday, Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida condemned the late-night launch, referring to it as a serious situation that affects the safety of people in Japan. Kishida also reiterated his commitment to continue working with the U.S. and South Korea to respond to Pyongyang's launches. The U.S., South Korea, and others have accused North Korea of shipping conventional arms to support Russia's war in Ukraine in exchange for Russian technologies to enhance its own military programs. Both North Korea and Russia have denied the accusations. Chung Eun-ju, Arirang News.
A day after North Korea launched a military spy satellite, the U.S. nuclear-powered submarine USS Santa Fe docked at a port in Jeju on Wednesday in a show of force against North Korea's nuclear and missile programs. The Los Angeles-class submarine is part of the U.S. Navy's Carrier Strike Group 1, along with the USS Carl Vinson aircraft carrier that arrived in South Korea the day before. Separately, Defense Minister Shin Won-sik visited the aircraft carrier on Wednesday and said the country will lay out plans for combined maritime exercises with the U.S. and Japan while the carrier is in South Korea. Shin also said the deployment of the USS Carl Vinson clearly shows Washington's commitment to defend South Korea under their mutual defense treaty. In London, the South Korean first couple were treated to a royal banquet hosted by the British royal couple during their state visit to the UK. King Charles gave a toast with a quote from Korean poet Yoon Dong-ju, and President Yoon replied with a reference to Shakespeare. Oh Soo-young takes us to the scene.
Quoting timeless poetry, President Yoon Suk-yeol and King Charles III celebrated 140 years of diplomatic ties between South Korea and the United Kingdom at a state banquet in Buckingham Palace. The South Korean leader and First Lady Kim Gon-hee attended an official banquet hosted by King Charles in the opulent palace ballroom. Thanking King Charles for his hospitality, Yoon said that at the heart of Korea-UK relations has been their blood alliance in the fight for peace and democracy. He noted that the UK had dispatched the second largest number of troops to aid the South during the 1950-53 Korean War. Britain was the first European country to establish formal diplomatic links with Korea, signing a Treaty of Friendship and Commerce in 1883. Both the President and the King agreed that their decades-long ties had been bolstered not only diplomatically and economically, but through cultural exchanges. Yoon highlighted Britain's model of parliamentary democracy, literary and scientific excellence, and musicians like the Beatles as strong sources of inspiration for Koreans and the world. Referencing Shakespeare's sonnets, Yoon raised his glass to the future as the two governments upgrade their relations to a global strategic partnership.
대한민국은 자유, 인권, 법치의 보편적 가치에 기반하여 영국과 함께 전 세계의 자유, 평화, 번영의 미래를 향해 굳건하게 협력할 것입니다. 이제 국왕 내외분의 건강, 또 한영 관계의 새로운 미래 그리고 세계 평화와 번영을 위해 건배를 제의하겠습니다. To me, my fair friend, the United Kingdom, you never can be old.
King Charles also highlighted the importance of shared values and quoted the words of Korean poet Yoon, whose works inspired hope and resistance against Japan's colonial rule of Korea before and during World War II.
Korea's preservation of its sense of self amid bewildering change was perhaps what the poet Yoon Dong-chu, who so tragically died in captivity on the very eve of Korea's liberation, anticipated when he wrote, "While the wind keeps blowing, my feet stand upon a rock. While the river keeps flowing, my feet stand upon a hill."
The tie and tiara affair was held on the South Korean leader's first official day of a state visit, with some 170 guests, including eminent figures in politics, business and arts, including Samsung chief Lee Jae-yong and K-pop group Blackpink. Surrounded by vibrant displays of flowers in red, purple and pink, the horseshoe-shaped table was adorned with gold-gilded plates holding egg and spinach tartlets, Windsor pheasant and a mango ice cream dessert, and decorations of pink sugar flowers resembling Korea's national flower mugunga or hibiscus. The South Korean president's official visit began on Tuesday with a royal greeting by the Prince and Princess of Wales, who drove with them to the Horse Guard Parade ceremonial ground to meet the King and Queen. The President and the King observed a 41-gun salute, 21 reserved for heads of state, with an extra 20 guns added given the royal venue, before heading to Buckingham Palace in a carriage procession. Following a private luncheon, Yoon was given a tour of South Korea-related items in the royal collection, including a letter sent by an emperor of Korea's Joseon dynasty, Gojong, to Queen Victoria, photos of Queen Elizabeth II's visit to South Korea, and the vase gifted to her. President Yoon and the First Lady will call again at the palace to bid farewell to King Charles on the last day of their state visit on Thursday. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News, London.
Also in London, President Yoon addressed the British Parliament calling for the lawmakers to join in the new era of bilateral relationship as he remembered and thanked the UK's support of South Korea during the Korean War. Kim Do-yeon reports.
At the UK Parliament on Tuesday, President Yoon Suk-yeol laid out his vision for a new era of bilateral relations between South Korea and the UK, saying the relationship will be reborn as, quote, true global strategic partners with greater focus on security.
Together, we will tackle North Korea's WMD threats. We will work more closely together to combat international cyber crimes, including cryptocurrency theft and technology hacking.
President Yoon also cited the recent ramping up of security cooperation, saying the UK participated in a joint military exercise between South Korea and the US for the first time this year. The two are also building mechanisms for intel sharing. He also touched on the economic aspect of ties. He said the two countries are now on their way to revising their bilateral free trade agreement to reflect the current economic situation and strengthen cooperation on supply chains and digital trade. And with the new Downing Street Accord being signed on Wednesday, they'll broaden cooperation in digital, AI, nuclear energy, and arms sectors, among others. And during his 17-minute speech in front of 450 UK lawmakers, he said Koreans and British people are strikingly similar.
The United Kingdom is the country of the Beatles, Queen, Harry Potter, and David Beckham's right foot. Korea is the country of the BTS, Blackpink, Squid Game, and the Son Heung-min's right foot.
He also referred to a quote from Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet of, "For this alliance may so happy prove to turn your household's rancor to pure love," saying, "For this friendship may so happy prove to turn challenges to pure opportunity." In the meantime, a big part of his speech gave appreciation for the UK's involvement during the Korean War. At one point, he acknowledged a veteran in the audience, the winner of 2019's Britain's Got Talent, Colin Thackeray.
On behalf of the Korean people and the government, I thank you with deep gratitude and respect.
This comes as Yoon also visited the Korean War Memorial and laid a wreath. The UK, during the Korean War, sent the second largest contingent of troops to help South Korea with around 81,000 servicemen and women, of which more than 1,000 died. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Over in the Middle East, Israel and Hamas have agreed on a 4-day humanitarian pause for the first time in 46 days of war. They have agreed to free 50 hostages held in Gaza and let humanitarian aid enter the enclave. Yoon has the latest.
The Israeli government and Hamas agreed on a 4-day pause in fighting on Wednesday to allow for the release of some hostages and the entry of humanitarian aid into Gaza. The state of Qatar released a statement confirming the success of its joint mediation efforts undertaken with Egypt and the United States. The statement says the start of the pause will be announced within the next 24 hours and last for 4 days, and that it is subject to extension. According to the statement, the agreement includes the release of 50 civilian women and children, hostages currently held in the Gaza Strip, in exchange for the release of a number of Palestinian women and children detained in Israeli prisons. According to Al Jazeera, the Israeli cabinet backed the agreement after talks on a Qatar-mediated deal that continued into the early hours of Wednesday morning, with the Prime Minister's office saying the deal would require at least 50 women and children to be released during the 4-day pause. The office added that the pause will be extended by 1 day for every additional 10 hostages released. There was no mention of exchanging Palestinian prisoners. Reports say Hamas released a statement confirming that 50 women and children will be released in exchange for 150 Palestinian women and children who are held in Israeli jails. The statement also says that Israel will stop all military action in Gaza, allowing for the entry of humanitarian aid trucks.
I think both sides are serious about their commitment to this truce. The fact that it took 46 days before a first truce has been agreed should tell us a lot. The United States, Qatar, as well as the Egyptians have been working very hardly behind the scene.
This is the first pause of the war, in which, according to Palestinian officials, more than 14,000 people have been killed in Gaza. That started on October 7th, when Hamas killed at least 1,200 people in an attack on Israel. However, Israel stands firm in its mission to destroy Hamas.
We are at war, and we will continue to fight until we reach all our goals.
According to Reuters, in a recorded message at the start of the government meeting, Netanyahu vowed the war would continue until Israel achieved all its goals to destroy Hamas and return all of the hostages taken. Yoon, Arirang News.
From film cameras to vinyl records, some millennials and Gen Zers are attracted to these retro items. Our An Song-jun explains what's behind this trend and what it means for the buying power of young people.
The styles of the late 1990s and early 2000s have been back in fashion recently, but this popularity of retro items goes beyond simply collecting vintage items. Rather, it is about the genuineness of living the moment and the authenticity of the nostalgia that attracts millennials and Gen Z to these retro products. Though pictures from these vintage cameras have a lower quality than modern smartphone lenses, each picture takes more thought and care, giving it value.
I feel like with the film camera, you're more in the moment. You see something that you want to capture and truly kind of like revisit kind of the significance of taking a photo and wanting to kind of freeze that moment and capture it forever.
According to a shopping platform popular with young consumers, retro cameras have been searched for 20 times more this May than the same time last year. Another blast from the past, vinyl records are also seeing a resurgence. According to Luminat's music media report, 2022 marked the 17th consecutive year that sales of vinyl records rose in the U.S. One online retailer said vinyls in South Korea peaked in 2020 with a near 120% on-year increase from 2019. Some cafes in Seoul even have individual record players and headsets for each table to listen to vinyl records. For millennial and Gen Z listeners, it's the old-fashioned sound of vinyl that appeals to them.
As far as Gen Z goes, I think that there's kind of a novelty to the actual act of listening to music on vinyl as opposed to listening to it on Spotify or like a streaming service or something like that.
The saying oldies but goodies is the perfect description to explain the continuing demand for retro products among the millennial and the Gen Z. A professor in consumer science says that young people's consumption power can propel the popularity of anything retro that they find fresh or unique.
Since retro products are not something they have been exposed to, they find a modern twist to it and add value. The MZ generation has the purchasing power plus the ability to spread information on the internet, which makes their influence powerful in bringing new products to the market, whether it's food, items, or places.
She said that the younger generations also add their new own twist to these old retro items. Han Sung-jin, Arirang News.
From the BTS army to the actual army, the 4 remaining members of BTS are soon set to begin their military service. The group's management agency BIGHIT Music said on Wednesday that RM, Jimin, V, and Jungkook have started the process for enlistment. This means they could start their service as soon as December. Members Jin, Suga, and J-Hope have already begun their military service. All able-bodied South Korean men between the ages of 18 and 28 must serve in the military for about 2 years. But the boys postponed their enrollment after the National Assembly revised its Military Service Act in 2020, allowing entertainers recommended by the Culture Minister to delay their enlistment until age 30.
A cooling trend is forecast to prevail for the remainder of the week. Maximum temperatures will plummet to 12 degrees Celsius in Seoul. By Friday, lows will have dropped significantly down to -3 degrees. When temperatures fluctuate this much, our bodies become more vulnerable to viruses. A low-pressure system will be dropping showers for parts of central regions. Tomorrow, starting for the daytime, light raindrops are expected for parts of Gyeonggi-do and Chungcheong-do provinces. For western Gangwon-do province, where temperatures are especially low, rain may be turning into snowfall. In the meantime, dry conditions are persisting across the east coast. Regions with higher elevations, such as mountainous areas of Gangwon-do province, will see gusty winds as well. The combination of dry air and gusty winds can easily lead to a fire, so please take extra precautions. Morning temperatures in Seoul and Gyeongju will be starting off at 9 degrees. We'll see more cloud coverage for the daytime. Highs in Seoul will peak at 12 degrees Celsius. Gwangju 18, Gyeongju and Busan will reach 20 degrees. Frigid spells are expected for this weekend with lows in the minus territory. It's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is News Center for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session coming up.